So do my Indian parents finally accept my half-black children? Let's get into it. So last I left off, I haven't spoken to my dad in over a decade. I think the last time I spoke to him was in 2013. I don't need him in my kids' lives. He disowned me a long time ago, or I felt he disowned me, even though I felt like he wanted to communicate with me, but he didn't want to own up to the fact that he has half-black grandchildren. He would tell people I'm off somewhere studying. The kids didn't exist. There was no pictures of me in his house. There's no pictures of the kids in this house. Anytime I would see one of his friends, oh, how's school? Bro, I'm married. But anyways, yeah, I don't need that in my life. You'll learn more about my upbringing with my dad and my stepmother in another video. There's a lot there. Anyway, so now let's get into my mom. I tried. Guys, I tried. And I'm like, okay, let's see if she changed. And I would use little triggers to see how she would react. There were 3 things that I'm like, wow, you can still do this to this day? So one was my 21-year-old hurt his Achilles in December. He got hurt. I told Instagram, Facebook, all of that. So my mom follows me on Facebook. So she read it. And I also told my sister, who told my mom. My mom writes me 4 days after it happened. And she was like, she wrote me on Facebook Messenger. She's like, is, Elijah okay? I was like, he's okay. He's in a lot of pain. She wrote me 2 days after that message and gave me a thumbs up emoji. A thumbs up. Okay, whatever. So I decided to visit my sister in Maryland, and because she just had a baby and I wanted to see my nieces. There's 2 of them. So I went there with my oldest daughter, who was her favorite when I was younger. She was literally like, give me her and I want to raise her again. Like she was her daughter because, apparently she didn't raise me and my sister right. Yeah. Anyways, so I brought her to Maryland to see her grandmother because she also wanted to see her uncle and her aunt and all of that good stuff. And my mom, the only thing she really said to my daughter was hi. There was no conversation. There was no, oh, how's school? Or what are you doing? Are you working? There was no trying to get to know her granddaughter at all. And I'm like, that's crazy. You would think she wants to get to know her grandchild. Like, who wouldn't want to get to know your grandchild? If I had a grandchild, I want to know everything about that child. But yeah, she really wasn't trying to talk to that child. And it was very disheartening to see. Very disheartening. I'm like, wow, okay. I'm going to have to get to a part 2 because there's not enough room in this video for this.
It still hits me with the surprise that there are those Indian parents that will disown or banish their daughters for marrying a black guy or getting into a relationship with a black guy for fear that they'll have black children, and black children are not so much favorable. This is according to how they think. And I'm trying to understand why is this happening. And it's not like just it's happening only in Indian community, but the fact that today we are talking about Indians and anti-blackness in India, I think we need to measure our focus on just India. Now, I'm trying to understand the historical roots of anti-blackness in the Indian community. And I understand that colonial influence has played a pivotal role or has played a greater role in making Indians themselves hate black people or people who look black, right? And you understand that there is so much anti-blackness. It is because their culture also have been whitewashed with a white man. And they want to relate or equate themselves with white people, right? This explains how the white color or a light color is so much desirable as compared to a black color. And this is seen during casting when you could see Bollywood movies. It's rarely you see black people. And when you see black people, they're normally given roles like poverty. They'll always be situated in areas where they are poor. Look at the Indian commercials. Indian commercials will not or will never display black people. Or maybe if there's a movement that tries now to debunk or to challenge the stereotype that some Indians themselves are against themselves. And they need to know that it is true that black people and Indians somehow share some similarities. Look at the struggles that Indians also have had. Look at the struggles that black people have had. So I don't think that it is right thing for people for Indians, specifically in this matter, to always discriminate or not or see black as something which is unfavorable. And so it disheartened me, because seeing these women coming out and explaining how they were banished, or how their parents doesn't support the fact that they are going to be married by a black man, right? So I want us to watch this video. I'll be back and we'll have a discussion about this phenomenon. This is a presented Jintok Stories, and if you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. But until then, let's dive right into it. I'll be back. Like, subscribe, share the video.
So that makes it okay, and people who know better should inflict the same cycles of behaviour. What? I've literally seen black people be racist to Indians too. But that don't mean I'm going to sit here and say it's okay when Indians are racist back to black people. And I'm not denying that some people can be racist in every culture. But I'm not talking about ignorant people here. I'm talking about those of us who know better. I'm talking about the same people who want to scream racism, but continue to remain ignorant. In the context of what I'm speaking about, and to the level of this racism, no argument can justify it. These are innocent people making food and just doing their bit in their country, trying to earn a living. And people in the comments are using it as an excuse to be racist. And this comment just backs all of that up. I think it's sad that black and brown people experience so much racism and then decide to point fingers at each other. But I'm not here to get into that. My point was that every single one of those videos have millions of views and hundreds and thousands of comments, of which most of them are racist towards Indian people. And no matter what anyone says, that racism cannot be justified.
Why are black Pakistanis being discriminated against, yet they have lived in that country for more than 1,000 years? To answer this question, let's travel to Liari, a slum in Karachi, southern Pakistan. Liari is home to many black Pakistani. They are known as Shidis and are greatly marginalized. We are considered Jahil and Jungli and assumed to be involved in criminal activity. This stereotype has kept our community from progressing. These are not my words. They were spoken by this lady, Tanzila Kambrani, Pakistan's first lawmaker from the Shidi minority. She traces her roots to Tanzania, and just like her, most black Pakistani are descended from the East African coast. Like black Iraqis, black Algerians, and other black people in the Arabic world, most of their ancestors arrived in the Indian subcontinent through the Arab slave trade. Today, the population of black Pakistani and black Indians has grown to roughly 1.3 million. This number cannot be verified since there is no racial desegregation in both countries' official data. This speaks to the invisibility that these two countries accord members of their Afro-local communities. Despite their centuries-old presence in Pakistan and India, the Shidis continue to be looked down upon. This racist behavior must stop, period. The unacceptable behavior of treating black skin as somehow inferior should have no place at all in today's Pakistani and Indian societies.
Anti-blackness and colorism plays a huge role on why a lot of people aren't talking about Congo, Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, Haiti, and other predominantly black countries. Black people are not seen as valuable, and our blackness is placed at the bottom of humanity. Some could even argue that in many instances, our blackness is defined in opposition to how we identify humanity. Especially when we start thinking about the ways that we justify exploitation. When you're able to masterfully mark a community as being inherently exposable and disposable, ain't nobody gonna bat an eye when you start exterminating them and disposing them to foolishness and nonsense. Here's a world map that illustrates Western media when tragedy hits. And as you see in the black right there, literally no one cares. You see how it is always already marked as being unstable? You feel me? This right here is like, hey man, people in Africa, it's war ridden. They always dealing with instability, man. Didn't they sell you into slavery anyway, man? Them folks is backwards. You see right here in the brown, hopeless situation, just pray. And while they doing it, they stealing all the resources. We see here in the yellow, maybe some could argue nobody wants to be sad all day, but really nobody really care about the indigenous folks in South America or the indigenous folks over there in this area right here, Russia/Asia. In the green though, there's undebatable 24-hour coverage. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about celebrity images, somebody fought it, you feel me? Some random person went missing, Everybody care about this right here. But you see right there in the black, Congo, oh yeah, Haiti over here somewhere. I would argue that this middle passage, this little Caribbean area, the only reason why it's yellow is because a lot of folks have their favorite resorts, their favorite vacation spots over there. But nonetheless, colorism and anti-blackness are global phenomenons that really impact how we understand international relations, and is usually able to justify anti-blackness in a way they're able to rationalize with colonial violence and imperialist propaganda that pushes imperialism and stealing and taking all the people and the resources from this little region right here, man. Free the whole continent of Africa, man.
Okay, so before I started my series, I wanted to tackle this question right here. A lot of Indians don't like black people because if you have a baby with a black guy, they think how dark it will come out. And in my case, this is true. So my family always called me dark growing up. Mind you, I'm not that dark, but my mother is darker than me and my father is lighter than me. So of course, then you get me. But apparently I'm still dark. So when I was pregnant with my son, all my mom would say is how dark my child was going to be. Now, when he was born, when you look at the top of a newborn's earlobe, you'll see what color they're going to be, basically. Their pigmented earlobe basically tells you how dark or how light the child is. So what she said was, he's going to be so dark, look at his ear. I was like, huh? I didn't get it until later that she thought that because of his ear, he's going to be dark. And well, anyway, colorism is a big issue in India, and that could be why they don't really like the intermingling with black people. Now, that being said, my mom did remarry after my parents divorced, and she did marry a white guy, and my sister is half white, so she's super, super bright. So, yeah. All right, so this is a very, very long story. If you want to hear the entire story of how we met to basically how I ended up having all my kids, let me know and I'll start a part series for you. But if not, me and my husband met in high school. My dad ended up finding out and taking me to India to show me the culture and show me the way of how good little Indian girls are supposed to marry within their culture. And I'm pretty sure he was trying to leave me there, which wasn't successful. I ended up coming back to the United States and breaking up with my husband because I was like, there's just so much pushback when it came to my family. So I was like, okay, I can't deal with this. A few months later, I was like, look, I love this guy. I can't lose him. He is my person. So ended up getting back with him, but of course sneaking around about it. Got caught again by my dad. He was posted up in a parking lot and saw me, and I ended up running away from home. My parents are actually divorced. So my dad lives in Houston. That's where we were at the time. And my mom lives in Utah. So I ended up moving with my mom in Utah. I told her about the whole situation. She was like on the fence about it, but she was trying to keep an open mind. She's probably thinking, oh, this is just a fling. It's not going to last very long. And well, ended up convincing her to move back to Houston. She actually wanted me to leave him already. So I was kind of sneaking around her back on being with him. So then one day I ended up running away again because there was just a lot of drama between my parents and my mom and my dad. And it was a lot for me to take in. I was 17. I ran away. I was like, look, I can't do it. So I ended up getting caught after I ran away and going home. I was already, I think, 3 months pregnant at the time. My mom immediately said, get an abortion. He's going to leave you. He's going to knock you up and not ever talk to you again. You know, stereotyping black men. And I was like, you don't know him. You don't know what we have and all that. So anyways, ultimately, as soon as I turned 18, I had my son 3 weeks before I turned 18. So after I had my son, waited about 2 months to stack my money and moved out. So over the years, my mom's been a little bit more open-minded about the kids. She says she likes them. Her actions are different. But, you know, ultimately, I feel she only likes the kids, my kids, that look Indian and not black. So actions speak louder than words to me. So there's that. My dad, on the other hand, he never had pictures of the kids, never really asked about them, doesn't really care, said I was off in school in some foreign land to all his people. So I haven't talked to him in like over a decade. So short story.
talk about the amount of racism that most Indian people have towards black people.
You can just hear the desperate confusion in my brother's voice because it makes no sense. Think about it. You've got 54 countries that comprise Africa. Then you've got India, which is a part of this larger scale, historically, culturally, linguistically connected area that we consider South Asia. And factually speaking, there is this observable phenomenon of this anti-black, anti-African sentiment within South Asia and within its diaspora abroad. You don't even have to think that deep to see that. It makes zero fucking sense, bro. Watch this. Both regions have suffered a very similar colonial past under the same colonial powers. Both of us are living a very similar colonial present. Over the course of ancient and modern history, there's been so much cultural and economic trade between us. And not to mention, African civilizations have been harboring and giving space for Indians and other Asians to live on their lands since pre-colonial times. I'm not talking about colonial powers taking indentured laborers over there. We have evidence of like shipwrecks of slave ships and Asians and Indians washing up on African shores and staying there ever since. Make it make sense, right? How can South Asians be so uncultured and not recognize these things? Especially NRIs and other South Asian groups. I don't care how many generations you've been living there, but living there and still holding anti-black, anti-African, this like Indian superiority, African inferiority complex. How dare you? How? And to top it all off, Dravidians, my people, how can we be this way, knowing full well that we are considered in the same category of blackness in our own country? If you've ever been called Galu, Karupu, Koranga, Jungli, Blackie, you know those are the exact same slurs that are used against Africans. In 2017, there was a case of racially motivated assaults against African university students in New Delhi. And here's what this motherfucker had to say about it, right? This is Tarun Vijay, by the way. He used to be a member of the Indian parliament, part of the BJP party. If you know, you know. Okay, here's what he had to say about those attacks to Al Jazeera in an interview. All right, so trying to make the case that Indians can't be racist, he says, if we were racist, why would the entire South, you know, the Tamils, you know, Kerala, Karnataka, and Andhra, why do we live with them? We have black people around us. I don't know what the fuck this bozo was going for. It looks like he was trying to humanize black people somehow, but it just ended up dehumanizing us alongside of them. So like, solidarity, I guess. I wish. If you don't know, phenotypically speaking, just how black Dravidian people can get, because you're looking at me, I don't get enough sun, you haven't seen me in the summertime. Here are some pictures. This is my uncle, my actual uncle, my mom's youngest brother. This is my other uncle. Here's my cousin, the one on the right with his nunba. Well, you can look at both of them for an example. Saving the best for last, here's my dad with me as a baby when he used to have hair. And he used to grow that out much thicker. It used to be a full-on afro. He and my mom met and married in Oman, where I was born. And when they were dating, people used to ask my mom all the time, I've asked my dad, how does that make you feel? And he's like, no offense taken, because Sudanese people are beautiful. East Africans are beautiful. And I take that one step further, Africans are beautiful. And no one can be you, and that's why they want control of your bodies. So to continue with the question, if it makes no sense, why is there this anti-African sentiment in our South Asian community? So I asked myself this question. I have no idea where to start to find answers, so I just went to Google and I typed in, why are Indians racist to black people? I did that this morning after seeing the TikTok that I'm stitching, and I found this interview. It's called Africa Holds Up a Mirror to India. It's an interview with Shobana Shankar. She's an associate professor at Stony Brook University in African Studies, and she's being interviewed by Zachariah Mampili. I'm sorry if I mispronounced his last name, I'm not sure. He is a PhD, also a professor at the City University of New York, and also in African Studies. I don't know if I said that already. Oh, and here you go. There's that quote by Tarun Vijay. I urge you to read through this interview in its entirety, but as you can see, a lot of it, especially in the beginning, is focused on Shobana's book, as it says there. It is called An Uneasy Embrace, Africa, India, and the Spectre of Race. I got this book this morning. I finished it in about 5-6 hours because it is an academic book, but man, is it an easy read. It's got citations, it's got references, and yeah, get this book. €12 is what I paid for it to get the ebook. 20 if you get it in paperback. It's a very small price to pay to get your head in the right space to really do the work and undo the mess that we're in. And here are the two biggest takeaways that I got from this book as like the biggest answers that I had for my question, right? First biggest takeaway of mine from this was when I learned about the sheer amount of work that has been done and is still being done today by Afrocentrist intellectuals to expand the theoretical framework of blackness in order to include Dravidian people specifically in it, and that way we can fight together against Indo-pessimism and Afro-pessimism together, which I thought was amazing. A lot of that work was pioneered by the first president of Senegal. His name was Léopold Senghor, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. He did extensive research on this. Unfortunately, it did seem to me that it was very one-sided, like it was a lot of work being done by Africans and very few South Asian or Dravidian collaborators in that. And it doesn't even matter if we're, like, there's no data that supports that we come from Africans, because for the time being there isn't. Just the spiritual concept of that work, of that effort, really spoke to me. My second biggest takeaway from this book, and I'll leave you with this, it comes right from the last page of the book. I don't mind giving this away because I think it's super valuable. Shobana Shankar goes ahead and says that Indian anti-blackness is a myth. And it's kind of like, whoa, wait a second. You just spent like 200 and something pages saying that this is a real thing and that we need to work against it. There's been work being done against it and all that, right? How can you say it's a myth? If I'm understanding her correctly, and I hope to God that I am, what she's trying to say is that anti-blackness is not an Indian thing. It's not something that is inherent to the South Asian community. We've learned it from someone, somewhere outside of ourselves. Gee, I wonder who. Professor Shankar goes on to talk about a slew of other things like Hinduism in Africa, the specifically South African problem with Indians, and just a bunch of other stuff. So please get this book, read it, talk about it in your families. Let's get this in our community. We got to get this in the African community as well. We have a lot of post-colonial chains to break. We specifically are hurting the wrong people. We're hurting ourselves. And let's work.
When I said anti-blackness was rife within the South Asian communities, that was an objective truth. It's not a debate. If anything, the comments under my last post prove that. I'm really confused as to what people are not understanding about my last video. So this is a direct question to the South Asian Desi viewers of my last video. Do you deny that anti-blackness exists within our cultures? Do you deny that it's a huge problem within our community? I'm really confused as to how every single person missed the point. So let's go back to basics and address the whole "it wasn't about race, stop bringing race into it." Our actions and reactions don't exist in a vacuum. Context always matters. And for that matter, racism doesn't always have to be overt and explicit. It can be subconscious. You don't always need someone to directly use a slur at you to know that they were being racist. In my video, I was highlighting the reactions that I've seen from the South Asian community and how I personally view it as evidence of their prejudice and anti-blackness. The lack of empathy for black women, the dehumanization of black women in our cultures and society, present systemically within our country, in our institutions, is not simply going to go away because someone wasn't overt with their racism, or because you as an individual thought that race doesn't matter in this particular case, or because you feel like people are bringing race into it. People harbor these prejudices, this bigotry, this anti-blackness, and it guides their way of life. It guides their actions and their reactions. So whether or not someone holds their hand up and explicitly refers to race, it doesn't mean that the racial context doesn't matter. It doesn't mean the actions or reactions weren't racialized in nature. This was a very specific case of misogynoir, and I would encourage people to look into what that actually means. That intersectionality is really important to understanding why people are so upset at what has gone on. And finally, just stop denying the experiences of black people. You've seen huge parts of the community react to this in a very negative way, and instead of denying their experiences, I think it's just important to hear them out and listen to what they have to say.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I opened up this discussion about anti-blackness in the Indian community, and of course we have a group of folks that will deny this. You have a group of folks that will agree with this, but at the end of the day, this is a topic that I feel like we need to discuss. Look, Africans, black people across the world, we are always favorable. We love other people than more than they like us. And what's the treatment when black people go to those places? One thing they'll realize, most of black people, especially Africans, or let me just say generally black people, you get to notice, okay, for this instance I'll use Africans. For example, an African who has stayed in Africa for a long time, almost in all of his life, you get to notice that we're not paying attention much to color. But when you leave Africa, for instance, you go to far the Indian side, you get to realize that color really matters. That's when you start to see difference, right? And even generally black people, this is something that happens to you. So I feel like this topic, in as much as people are not ready to talk about it, and some Indians denying this, as like the video that I've also shown, this is a really devastating situation, and I feel like we need to talk about it and look at the historical roots of anti-blackness. Now, we have colonial influence that has played a major part in shaping how people think and look of what they define as beauty, or what they define as something which is desirable, right? So some people see to it that having a black color is not much desirable as compared to having a lighter skin. And it is so much desirable to these people to the extent that they don't want to associate, or they don't want something that looks like black, or that tries to relate with black. So when they find that this is happening, they'll try to find a way to put it down. They'll try to find a way to scrap it. A lot of people are asking themselves this question: why are we not seeing a lot of black Indians in the entertainment industry? Or if we are seeing black people in black Indians, why are they given roles that are substandard, right? Now, I have an analysis that I need to go through, and I think we'll have a proper discussion about it. Now, when we're talking about historical roots of anti-blackness, we are talking about colonial influence. Now, during British colonial rule in India, racism was institutionalized. The British established hierarchies with whiteness at the top and the darker skinned tones at the bottom. This reinforced colorism within the Indian society, which persists to this day. And this created what is called the caste system. The India as a caste system. The caste system, which stratifies Indian society, often correlates lighter skin tones with higher castes and darker skins with lower castes. This created a bias against dark-skinned people, including Africans and those with African descent. And so this also explains as to why you are seeing this banishment from these parents, because they are afraid that they'll sire children that will become black. And it is true, the black gene is so dominant. Whenever you have a kid with a black person, most definitely 90% chances are the child are going to be black, or they're going to be having a traces of black, right? So the caste system, people are afraid of being down, and the British colonial rule came up with this, stratifying people regardless of color. So where the more lighter you are, the more you are of higher strata. The darker you are is how lower your social structure or social strata was, right? And this is a wrong measurement of worth of people. We can't measure the worth of people by using color. And this is where this whitewashed society, for example, Indians and part of Africans, because we bear ourselves with the beauty standard of having a light skin. If you have a light skin, people tend to find you so much desirable. And I feel like it's a problem that we have, right? And I've talked to some Africans, some friends who will say that they will not date a person if they're not light skinned. So this is a problem that I think we also Africans, we are struggling with the same way Indians are struggling with, because the people who came to colonize Africans, or people came to colonize all these Indians, same story. They taught you to self-hate yourself, and they taught you to think that the lighter color is so much desirable as compared to black color. And of course, I'm not trying to put down those who have lighter skin. It's okay of having lighter skin, but this has been an issue, especially in the black community, especially within the African setup, why you have a couple of people trying also to change their skin, trying to bleach their skin to look like the oppressors, right? People are getting to like their oppressor by trying to be like them, asking for their validation, because that's what they believe, that's the beauty standard that they should be having, while it's wrong. And I think it is time for black people around the world, black Indian, Afro-Latinos, you need to embrace the color that you have. Black Chinese, black Japanese, I don't care. As long as you have a black trace in you, you might be black but still light, right? And it's okay. So what I'm trying to talk about here is that it's upon ourselves to understand that beauty comes in different shades, whether black, whether white, whether mixed, it doesn't matter, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we need to understand that the colonial masters played a pivotal role in shaping how we think, how we perceive the beauty standards. Now, as I'm going on with the presentation, I would like to note that talking about the question of colorism and the beauty standards. Now, fair skin ideal. We need to know that in Indian culture, lighter skin is often associated with beauty, status, and social acceptance. This evidence in India's multi-billionaire dollar skin light skin industry and the prevalence of fair-skinned actors in media. Blackness, being darkest skin tone, is unfairly associated with lower social status, and unattractiveness in many community. And it's true, because it's just the same thing I've been trying to explain, right? I'm going to be talking about globalized beauty standard. Western standards of beauty, which prioritize whiteness and lighter skin, have also influenced the perception within the Indian communities globally. The third thing that I'm going to be talking about is cultural homogeneity and traditions. Now, preference of endogamy. Indian culture places significant emphasis on marrying within one's own community or ethnic group. Often to preserve traditions, culture, and family honor, black individuals are often seen as outsiders, making interracial relationship taboo. Makes a lot of sense, but it is not something that we are trying to commend. Family reputation, or what Indians called izat. The fear of losing family respect in the community leads to many Indian parents to oppose relationship with black partners. Marriages to black people may be reviewed as shameful within the conservative circles. The fourth thing that I'm going to be addressing is media stereotype of black people. Now, negative portrayal of black people in global and Indian media amplifies stereotypes. Indian cinema and television often depicts Africans and black people through racist caricatures or associate them with crime, perpetuating prejudice. The fifth thing that I'm going to be talking about is fear of socioeconomic consequences. Perceived economic status. There is an often perception that black people occupy lower socioeconomic status. Parents may fear that their daughters marrying black partners will lead to financial insecurity or downward social mobility. And it is true, right? I'm going to be talking about, and look, this also explains as to why you'll see for a white person to marry a black person, that black person is a celebrity, plays football, got money, because they can't do that when they don't have money. So it is true what I'm trying to say. Now, another thing that I'm going to be addressing in the same fear of socioeconomic consequences is community isolation. Families fear ostracization by the extended family or community. If a daughter marries outside cultural expectations, particularly with a black person, it's happened. So, the following could be potential remedies and progress: education and awareness. Building awareness of shared histories of struggles and resilience between Indians and black communities can foster a mutual understanding. Another thing is role of the youth. Younger generation in Indian communities are increasingly challenging these biases, advocating for equality and building relationships that transcend racial prejudices, just like these young couples that I've just showed you. Representation matters. Positive portrayals of black people in Indian media, increased interaction, and interracial solidarity movements can reduce prejudice over time. So I think that this part of discussion, we need to have this discussion to dismantle the ideas that was put into these people. These are presented Unique Stories, and I'm hoping to see you in my next video. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.